Welcome to the Vet to Vet podcast. My name's Cole, and today I wanted to talk very briefly over the mission statement behind the Veteran to Veteran podcast and what the deeper purpose is and why exactly I'm doing this. In this video, I'm also going to be putting out kind of a notice, just so people know right out of the gate what to expect and to try and prevent people from being offended or being caught off guard by the content that some of these episodes may contain. So I have a page here that I wrote so that I could read it just off script and explain exactly what you can potentially expect from some of these episodes. And I'm also going to kind of go off the cuff a little bit after I read this. So I'm going to read this and get it out of the way, and then I'm going to kind of elaborate a little deeper on really what the core purpose is behind this whole podcast. So here we go. The Veteran to Veteran podcast, our mission statement is to provide veterans of all ages, generations, jobs, wars, and experiences a comfortable platform to share as much of their life story as they wish. For the sake of purity and authenticity, this podcast is and will always be unfiltered and uncensored. If you are ever offended by the language, please take a second and remember that you clicked on this podcast to hear what could potentially be the story of someone being injured, taking a life, or losing their best friends. This is a podcast about military service as well as the darkest, most intimate moments in war. This is your notice that there will be language. We will try to keep things professional, but this can also get carried away while we reminisce on the stories of our glory days when we were full of youth, salt beyond our years, and the best friendships that we'll ever have. Now, that's really like the viewer and listener discretion is advised notice. Okay, the first podcast, the biggest piece of feedback, one that we got was that the audio was low, and that I apologize. Right now I'm recording and I'm really close to the microphone. When I was recording the first episode with Caleb, we were kind of, just slouched back, kind of relaxing as we were talking. So I'll try to make that improvement moving on. The second piece of feedback that I got was that it was there's a lot of profanity, and some of that, I understand the complaint. I wasn't aiming for any certain level of professionalism in that first episode because it was me and my best friend basically having a conversation with each other. And that's just how we talk to each other. So moving forward, I myself as the host will try to maintain a level of professionalism in all the episodes, but I will not ever tell a guest that they cannot use whatever language they feel is necessary to best convey their experience. So with that being said, this is a totally uncensored podcast. I may not curse as much, but the guest is free to do whatever they want. I'm not going to tell somebody who is telling me their story about maybe killing someone or seeing their friends get killed that they can't use profanity. That's silly. And if that's something that bothers you, that's fine. Just don't watch or don't listen. I think people need to keep a certain perspective on what it is that they're listening to and keep that perspective throughout the podcast. So the deeper purpose behind the Veteran to Veteran podcast, I had this idea in my head that we're losing World War II veterans and Vietnam veterans at a high rate. Okay, World War II veterans obviously at a much higher rate, but Vietnam veterans are getting older as well, and I don't like the idea of their stories not being told. One, because I think that every veteran, regardless of what your job, what your generation, whether or not you were in a war, I think that every veteran deserves to have their story told. They should have their service recognized, and not just by their friends or family, but by the country and by the world. Volunteering for a service greater than oneself is a noble calling, and I think people deserve to be recognized for that. That's just my opinion, and that's this whole the foundation for this. But then I also started thinking, I had a great-grandfather who lost his arm in World War II, and I've heard stories of him secondhand through other family members. And I was thinking, how could we make it to where, in the future, if people wanted to hear the stories of their grandparents or great-grandparents, I think this platform would be a great way for them to be able to not only hear those stories firsthand, and obviously that means from the source itself. There is no more pure way to hear a story than from the person who experienced it. But also, if you never knew that person, say 100 years from now, they find these videos and they're hearing these stories, but they never met their great-grandfather or whoever the guest is. Not only are they hearing them tell their stories, but they're hearing the language that they're using. They're seeing their mannerisms. They're seeing the way they talk and how they look as they tell these stories, and they're seeing their facial expressions. And it's just a much more personal way to hear a story from someone that you may have never even known because they may have passed away before you could hear that story. And I think that that's very important. Hearing stories secondhand is obviously better than nothing, but to be able to hear it from the person themselves is a big deal. And I want to be able to provide that for people, for friends and for family, and for everyone to be able to experience. So with that being said, my aim is to provide people with as comfortable as a platform as possible. If people are sensitive to questions that I ask them, I try and iron all that out before the episode is even recorded. And so that way I don't ask questions about things that they are just outright against speaking about. Some people, I've had a few of these conversations, some people don't want people to know what they went through. They want to take that with them to the grave, and that's everyone's personal preference. But for those who are willing to talk about it and who maybe were never comfortable speaking to their own family members about it, but if they are ever going to speak about it, they want to do it once, they want to do it on camera, and they want to do it so that if people ever want to hear it, they can just refer back to the video and that person never has to speak about it again. If that person is out there, I want to provide them that platform. I want to be able to document and archive service member stories so that they're never lost, they're never forgotten, and that they don't pass with the service member themselves. So that's all I really got today. That's the mission statement. That's the notice for potential profanity. It's going to be in the episodes, especially when I get some of my buddies on here. Like I said, I'll try to maintain professionalism and refrain from cursing, but I'm not going to make that guarantee, because if we get joking and reminiscing about old times, then stuff is just going to come out. Just remember what it is that you are going into when you're listening to this, because you might be hearing a lot of dark stuff. So that's all I really got for you guys today. I appreciate you guys listening. If you haven't yet checked out episode 1 with my buddy Caleb, he's a Green Beret. Again, not going to talk about specifics with him. I'm trying to iron out the details to get a few more guests on the show sooner than later. I'm going to try. I would like to do it one a week, if not one every 2 weeks, because I really enjoy doing this. And yeah, I think that's all I got. So like, comment, subscribe. Check out the Instagram. It is the Vet to Vet. You can find it at Vet to Vet on Instagram. I don't have Facebook or Twitter or any of that stuff. So I'll be posting all the new updates for episodes on the Vet to Vet Instagram page. And yeah, that's all I got. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks.